How's it going? It's bigSHow, theGod, and today's subject is relationships. Relationships, influence, and outcomes. And this is triggered off by how I view people in general, and then how I relate them to myself. Back to the conceptual side for me, it starts from me first. So there's me. And then I've done this for a while. It's still relevant, I think. Me, and then the most important people to me. And I frame that up. And my children are the most important to me. And then my wife. And look, there's not much in that. They kind of like gel together. But if you want to put them in an order, there is an order. And that's the highest orders, right? And so there's those. From that, I have my parents in there, and my brother. So any sibling I would have would fit there. And my brother and my parents are actually on the same line, interestingly enough. Have I thought that through? But yeah. Yep. There's that with them too. We could debate that a little bit. But no, that's how I view it. So that's my view. And then we start getting down into the tiers of everybody else. So that's the graph I have of a basic system or structure or framework of most important. And I used to say this, the only person on that list that can go out of that list was my wife. For obvious reasons. And it's probably the same for her too, I would imagine. So that's a fact. Whereas my children and my brother and my parents will never leave that list. It's weird. I wouldn't have said that once, but that's where I sit. And so when you have a perspective of that as a groundwork for me, I build everything on top of that. And so relationships that I build and work on outside of that framework, or those most important to me, I use the same mindset and same way of working with those people. So if I go career and where I work, most important people to me, I can easily say is everybody. Okay, that doesn't really help much. I can treat everybody equally and everybody in a certain way. I go, yep. But if I use bringing my attention to something, which is what I just did then for me, is it brings attention to it. And whereas I find if I say everybody's important, I get to the point of, well, no one's important. If everybody's important, then the word is not necessary. You hear me? So that doesn't work, in my opinion. So when I frame it, or when I mentally mindset it in this sort of framework, it just recenters me quite often, I guess. Understanding when I'm like this, and I can have all types of ways of thinking about something on the day. It's another way of bringing me back, regardless of how the other person has, from my perspective, treated me and done what they've done to me, what they haven't done to me, from my point of view. So if my mother has said stuff that I didn't like, and it's annoyed me and thinged me, so I'm avoiding her, I don't want to talk to her again for a while, and we've argued about something, that framework of who's most important to me, well, she's on the list. Okay. Right. Well, if she's important to you, what can you do? What can I do? Okay, so it recenters me back again. And am I misunderstanding? Am I back to that sort of thing? Do I need some more space? Can I see it from a different perspective? That sort of thing, right? Whereas if they're not in that framework for me, I guess I can just leave everything to be as it is. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen overnight. There's always a timeline and a process to go through. But it's a good way to build that in. And so, so it happens in career. I have the people that report to me, I view as the most important in my career right now. And then the people I report to and the people that I have functional relationships with, they're in the the mindset. But I will always put who's most important. And even though they've annoyed me or done something that I disagreed with or made mistakes or all that sort of stuff, this framework can bring me back. Because another layer to that is, and back to the family one, is being the most important, and then having these subsets of important people, but what tiers they rely on. As busy as I get over here with this, and the system is this one here is still there. It's still more important, right? It's more important than any of these. It just is. Doesn't mean these aren't, but there's still a range. There's still a range that I'm working in. So that helps me prioritize and helps me be patient and helps me get over things. Helps me have difficult conversations with them. Helps me value them. Share more with them. Then I guess I would have, because when you value it, when you value some of the things I talk about, it makes sense to share it with those that are most important. And so that model kind of, and from a mindset and from, it builds emotion into it, it really centers me into pushing through some of the negativity that comes from it, and the what I would call the downsides, or the impacts of feedback that bothers me, or that annoys me as an individual, right? So that's my kind of overview of how I set up relationships. And I did this because I did this about 10 years ago, I think. And back then I didn't have any contact with pretty much everybody. I found a system that was the opposite. And hey, at the time I thought it was sweet, don't have to deal with nothing. But in fact, I'm dealing with everything anyway. Just every time it pops into the front of my mind, whatever the subject would have been, was annoying. Whereas it's annoying now, and I'm involved with them all the time, or as much as they allow me to be anyway, right? So the difference is I benefit. So I benefit, which sounds selfish again. Okay. But my motto is, if I benefit, then so do the most important people to me. Because one of the points in this is the influence it has, in my opinion. And I see signs of it every day. There's not a day that doesn't go by where I don't see signs of my self-improvement has influenced the most important people to me. And yet all of them are different moving entities and have their own complexities. But I know the difference between there and here. That mindset, or that avoidance, that way of viewing everybody, versus this way. So, and in that statement, though, it's very important that I have the self-awareness of the value, right? And in that process, that self-awareness is what drives the continuation of doing the work, of being uncomfortable with myself, of calling myself out, of self-analyzing, of reflecting, because it doesn't happen by chance. You know, I'm not a natural at this, to a level that I want to be anyway. You know, I'm good at lots of things. But that's my opinion. But to be better at what you are, to be better than you are today, takes work, regardless. It just does. And this is the types of processes I go through to enable me to be consistent and progress and improve and change. That's how I do it. So I think that's the awareness part, self-aware. These micro steps I take when I journal, when I talk to people, when I listen, when I hear some feedback. Had my daughter over yesterday, and this type of stuff hadn't seen her for a couple of weeks. So I got to listen and hear her updates and where she's at, and it's impactful. It's impactful from my perspective, and I know, because I've had these conversations with her previously, and now I see I can see more clearly the differences. And I guess that's the bit that I'm most interested in proving, because what I do have a habit of doing is theorizing or hypothesizing, this will equal this. If I do this, this will happen. Right? Well, it's a very loose statement and requires evidence. In my evidence, I can go, here's my evidence. And I go, okay, you need more. And I get challenged on this a bit. I get knocked back on this concept a lot more, is that your evidence has to be not the word more, but there has to be, it can't be linear more. It has to be wider, which makes it hard, right? Just having comments from friends about how nice you are to be around. That's cool. Got it. That ain't enough, I have to say. I thought this a lot, and I used to have, I still do. I have friends going on, oh, it's great. You spent some time with me doing this and spent time with me doing that. And I did. And I still do. But what was interesting out of that was I'd go, but I haven't spent time with my brother. I haven't spent time with my brother. Oh yeah, no, he's been annoying me. Oh yeah, no, he didn't reply to my phone call 6 weeks ago, 2 months ago, 2 years ago. Oh yeah, no, he's good. He's doing whatever he's doing. Okay. And so part of that was that I was getting from that this feedback and this, I'd feel good, feel great on the day. We'd hang out. I was yapping about whatever was going on and working through whatever was going on over here. And you see, my attention's here. I got it. I provided value, and I get thanked and told how life-changing it was for them. I don't dismiss that, but I go, well, how better would it have been if I'd spent the time over there with this person? Yeah, but you've done everything you can. You've texted, you've walked over there, you said hello, you've tried to do this. He's done this. He hasn't done that. He hasn't done. I got it. I understand that, and I get it now. It's hard, but I tell you, it's a lot more rewarding. And every time I hear a story now where people are going through difficulties with family or friends, it actually makes a difference to the person. I tend to have this view, and the view is that the more I influence or time I spend with the most important people in their own ways, the more valuable that was. Versus, I don't want to frame the two together. They're both important, but what's most important? In my opinion, it's both. Doing both is most important. But you got to do both. So I can't sit here and have a gap here. See the list I made? I can't have, here's a gap. I see a gap here. Okay. A gap would be what communication have I had with that person in the last month, 2 months? If the answer is none, zero, I'm not talking about them contacting me. That makes no difference. That's you. I don't have control over you, correct? I only have control over me. Last time I checked. And with this technology I have a few other options and choices that I can make. I can choose to send another request or I can share another thought or another bit of information to any one of the people in that list right now. And if I can't, then I work on how I can. So now that I can, it's not what I can't do. Now I've worked out what I can do. Now that question is, then why haven't you done it? And then we're back to me again. Why haven't I? Oh, the reason I haven't is because of this. And then the more times I find a reason why I haven't, I have to analyze that. Because that just plays into avoidance. That plays into difficult. That plays into it's too hard. I know it's hard. Oh, they're still doing the same thing they did yesterday. Got it. All right. Now, did I say that I communicate the same way? Did I say I keep talking about the same subject when I reply? Did I say any of that? I have the ability to just share a joke. I have the ability to just share something loose. I have the ability to ask a question, depending on the question I'm curious about. Correct? So yes, it comes from a frame of accountability, ownership, responsibility. And unfortunately, it fits in there. And it comes from what did I do? What can I do? It's if nothing is your answer, then that's what you've done. If that's your answer, then think of that. Think that through. I've done nothing. Oh no, and I will find a way. We will find a way to justify doing nothing. Why? Because I've got these. Here's my evidence, and it's very profound. And look, this is me too, right? I have it. I have it right now. I have it the last whatever stage I'm at with the people I've just talked about. Through that journey, these timelines of what it's brought it to my attention, brought it to my mind. With this model, is that you got to realize that other person hasn't got it brought to their mind necessarily, right? They've got who says I'm most important to them? You know, push comes to shove. If I'm dead, they might say it at my funeral. They might say it, but the evidence shows. I didn't talk to him for 10 years, but I love him. He's very important. Oh no, I miss him so much. That doesn't make sense. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. You know, I'm not going to someone's funeral, and I haven't spoken to them for 10 years, and walking in there like that. I miss him so much. I mean, it just doesn't. I didn't realize, fucking hell, that's awesome. Someone who you love so much and most important to you, that you didn't speak to them, you didn't communicate to them, you didn't fucking like some of their photos. Fuck's sakes, really? And you're caught up in thinking of the past, which is fine. I get it. If my cousin passes today, I'll get upset about thinking about something from 30 years ago. I'm going to say he's fucking so valuable and I miss him so much and I wish he was here. He was here a week ago or 6 months ago and you didn't fucking see him then, which is what this framework does, in my opinion. It was what it's done for me anyway, And I guess from that perspective, I justify sitting here. If my cousin passes this afternoon and I haven't spoken to him for 30 years, then I'm good with it. Why am I good with it? Well, he's not in my list of most important people, at least. And I'm just honest about that, But I've got cousins and that I've spent time with. I'm different with those ones at their funeral, right? Well, I will be or if I go to them or whatever, you know what I mean? That has some sort of justification for this. Otherwise, I'm just, anybody that dies, I'm missing them. It just is what it is, right? But if you put the layers back and go, well, my son died yesterday, and I haven't spoken to him for 12 years. Going to that funeral ain't going to be fun, I have to admit. But to me, it's the same. It'd be the same kind of concept. Oh, yeah, it was 20 years ago that we had some great memories and some memories. Wasn't good, wasn't whatever it was. Okay. You're going to carry that around a bit, I think. And you'll make out that you're not, and you're good with it. Well, I guess you're good with it for 10 years, so what's another 30? And that's where I start challenging this concept, is that being in that mindset of going, that's why death's a good one, right? If I look at my death, if you look at the mortality of anybody around you and say if they died this afternoon, what would be your logical answer to that? And if the answer is you'll be good with it, that's not going to be true. Right? On any level. So let's just stop that bit. You just have to deal with it, with what's left. And then unfortunately, the ownership was always you. The ownership of what you're going through was still on you. But your story and your head will be, they were this type. And you'll get plenty of evidence to back that up too. I notice I'd be able to get 4 other people in the same room even that will back up and support why I didn't speak to that person for 10 years or not, and go, yeah. But then if I look at the room even more, there'd be 50 people that freaking enjoyed this person, and got a lot of value out of it. But I'll ignore those. My dad hung out with with his mates. Oh, great guy. He's the greatest thing ever. He's this, he's that. I didn't spend shit with him. I haven't seen him since the 90s. Well, that's because he was over here, doing these things. And so they say that gets tough, right? It's a tough thing to swallow. So when you know all that sort of thing, and you think it through, and you start seeing value in other people, these are the types of breakthroughs you can have, and it completes the whole of all the jargon I've been talking with, processes and planning and self-improvement, and these are the parts. This is the hard stuff, right? This is the difficult stuff. Now we start getting into true difficulty, or for me anyway. We could set fire to the rest. I improved my relationships with someone who I've identified as very important for me, in whatever shape that takes. I improve, I progress. That transcends me 10 times more than earning some more money. I'll tell you that much. And we both know how much earning more money means, because I value that a lot. A lot, but not as much as that. But it's still on the list. But when I stick with that that mindset of improving myself, of my self-awareness, and going through that difficult, whatever stage it is, and none of this is saying that I've influenced this person or my family or thing to be better or change. I haven't done any of that. Just the act of me sharing it, showing it, being around, being active, being involved, listening, and understanding or not understanding, disagreeing, all that stuff is valuable, right? Back to the other piece. Well, there's the other system of nothing. I got 0 here, nothing, not even something, nothing, and then I've got all that, regardless of what that is. Now, I will say, if that, I would analyze the list, and if it's all negative shit, and if it's all just me barking orders and me, I have to look at my conduct and have to look at how that's framed and what's going on in there. That's fair. There's responsibility mixed in with that. And if that's what I'm evolving, if that's what I'm, if how I'm treating my family or my most important people or things through that process, and if it needs adjusting and changing, if it's not all of it, but it's not dominated with negativity, You know, if I'm just going to come in going barking orders, then that's got to be back to, you know, back on me again, correct? So, you know, change comes through with all those types. So, I think that's kind of covered that subject. And I think I'll get on with something else. Yeah, I think I will.